Greetings everybody, coming to you from my 2014 Mercedes-Benz GLK 250 Blue Tech Diesel. So I wanted to talk a little bit. I know that oil change intervals are one of the most hotly contested topics ever, but I wanted to share my thoughts on why a set mileage interval is really kind of arbitrary and irrelevant. It really comes down to the type of driving that you are planning on doing. So in this car, it calls for 10,000 mile oil change intervals, and I'm actually going to stretch that quite a bit, and here's why. So if you take, well, they say 10,000 in 1 year. If you take, like, say, a typical driver who just maybe drives in the city, they run to the store here and there, maybe someone with a family, they pick up their kids at school or take them to soccer practice, and all the trips are short. They have several trips a day, and they might average, say, 17 miles per hour overall. So what's going on there is that 10,000 miles is going to be a lot rougher on the engine than someone like me, who every trip is like at least 20 minutes. Many are a lot longer. The oil gets thoroughly warmed up. I keep the speeds up. I do a lot of highway driving. I think really what we're looking at is a few factors. So first of all is the hours. If I switch my gauge here to my last 22,000 miles, I've averaged 34 miles per hour. And I'm guessing a lot of people who just primarily drive locally and in the city and very few highway trips would probably be at like half that. So their 10,000 miles is going to be double the engine running hours that my 10,000 miles would be. Now, on my first oil change in this car, I went 11,500, and I sent it off to Blackstone for analysis, and everything was well within spec, and it had a lot of life left. So I'm taking a scientific approach to this too. It's backed up with oil analysis. Everything was pretty much within range. The oil filter was perfectly fine. There was no sludge or chunks or anything in there. The oil was still nice and thin. The only thing, and I think it's just because it's a modern diesel, was the fuel dilution was 1.5%. And they say you want that to be 2% or less. So, extrapolating, it looks like I have another 25% more to be able to go and still be fine on that. So I'm still debating on what mileage interval to do, for my next oil change in this. As it stands now, let me get to the setting here and show you. I have exceeded by 900 miles, so I've got about 10,900 miles on this. I'm thinking anywhere between 12.5 and 14 for my next oil change, and I will also do have a full analysis done at Blackstone on that. Wow, this time of year at this time of morning is really challenging to drive because the sun is just right at eye level. Anyway, yeah, another another thing too to take into consideration is short trips are not going to warm up the oil to burn off any moisture that might be in there. And that's typically the kind of thing that turns into sludge, is if you take short trips, don't warm up the oil, it can get full of water and acids and stuff like that, and that kind of thing tends to get burned off by taking longer trips. I mean, by my logic, I could probably go 20,000 miles and still be fine due to the type of driving I do, but I'm going to gradually increase. I'm not going to make any dramatic jumps in the oil change interval. I'm going to go up 1,000 or 2, maybe 3 each time before I change it the next time, and then send it off for analysis. Now, I did the same experiment. I had a Chevy Cruise diesel. Now, it actually calls for oil changes every 7,500, but I ended up pushing it as far as 17,000 once, and that was about the tipping point where it started to get where Blackstone said this is probably about the limit. So I did actually back it off from there, and I ended up going with about 14,000, and that ended up being good. There was still a lot of life left in the oil. It was still clean, and I had bought that car brand new and put well over 200,000 miles on it. It still ran like brand new when I finally sold it. So you know, that's really, I think, something that I don't see very often in the conversations about oil change intervals, is the type of driving you do. Everybody always talks about it's miles, it's miles, it's miles, it's miles. Do it in 3,000 miles or your engine's going to blow up tomorrow. And yeah, it's so many more things than just miles. It's everything needs to be taken into account. Now, Mercedes-Benz in particular, since I'm most familiar with their systems, they used to have something that would actually evaluate the type of driving you did and base your oil change interval on that. Holy cow, this road is having more traffic than I have ever seen. For those of you that live in a city, you're probably thinking, what are you talking about? You've seen like 5 cars. That's very unusual for this road, especially in the morning. That's why I like to drive it, because there's never anybody on it. Anyway, yeah, I mean, miles is probably the least relevant criteria. It's really too bad that somebody else is hauling some stuff here. It's really too bad that they don't give you hours on the engine in between oil changes, like a gauge that shows you how many hours your engine is running. Because I think if anything, if there was one measurement that would really mostly apply to oil change interval, it would be hours. I'm going to do a quick 0 to 60 video here. Make sure nobody's coming. We're slightly downhill. Let that car get a little bit ahead. Punch it. Or close to 60. I don't have my race box with me, so can't really get any times or anything like that. It's always fun in these modern diesels. The torque is just nuts. This particular engine is a 2.1 liter 4-cylinder that makes 200 horsepower and 369 foot-pound of torque, plus or minus a little bit. It's just amazing. It's Also been a super reliable engine. I've done other videos about stuff that's gone wrong with this car. The engine itself is pretty bulletproof. They use the same engine in Sprinters, and there's plenty of them running around with 300,000, 400,000, 500,000 miles. And I think a lot of those people who do a lot of highway driving also subscribe to the higher mile oil change interval as well. Anyway, just wanted to share my thoughts on that. I'm not at all worried about blowing up my engine by going 12, 13, 14,000 miles. And again, because of the type of driving that I'm doing. Well, hopefully you can hear me okay, because I do have the sunroof open. I just lubricated the sunroof with the Mercedes-Benz paste. I'm going to look for probably a substitute for that, so if you have any suggestions. I've heard that the Volkswagen paste is pretty inexpensive, and it's basically the same. This is a pano roof. It still squeaks when I open and close it. I'm not sure what's causing that, but I do have the tracks lubricated, and I did lubricate the seal a little bit. Maybe it's just going to take a few times operating it to quiet that down a bit. But anyway, that wasn't really the topic of this video. I just wanted to throw that out there. Have a great day, everyone.